The first time the white SUV came through my gate, I was in the barn doorway with a feed bucket. Two men in gray uniforms, a light bar on the roof, not flashing, just present, a shoulder patch, Pinnacle Estates Community Safety, authorized patrol. They drove through without stopping, without speaking, without making eye contact with the property owner standing 40 feet away in plain sight. They drove my access road to the creek crossing, sat 3 minutes, turned around, and left. 11 miles total. Neither man got out of the vehicle. I photographed the plate, opened the logbook, wrote the entry. 8:40 a.m., August 26th. White SUV, light bar, Pinnacle Estates Community Safety Patch, Main Road east to Creek Crossing, return. 11 minutes. No communication, not law enforcement. Confirm with county. Document every entry. I called my neighbor Earl, 22 years as a county sheriff's deputy. I described what I'd seen. He said, "They have exactly the same legal right to enter your property without permission as any other private citizen, which is none." I asked about the light bar, decoration. I called my property attorney the next morning. She pulled the county recorder's records for the eastern road strip, the 340-foot section connecting Pinnacle Estates to the county highway. She called back that afternoon with one question. How long have 260 households been driving across your land? I didn't have the answer. The logbook did. Before the story kicks off, drop your location below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more crazy stories like this. Decker Pruitt is in the barn doorway at 8:40 a.m. on a Tuesday in late August when the white SUV comes through his gate. He is holding a feed bucket and watching it the way he watches anything that moves on his property without his knowledge, with the complete, unhurried attention of a man who has worked this land for 30 years and understands that 380 acres of cattle ranch requires consistent observation, and that things which move on it without explanation are always worth understanding before they are worth reacting to. The vehicle is a white SUV, a full-size model, clean, the kind of clean that suggests regular washing rather than light use, the kind of vehicle that is maintained because its appearance is part of its function. It has a light bar on the roof, not flashing, off, passive, present the way a badge is present on a uniform jacket, communicating authority by existing rather than by activating. The two men inside it are wearing gray uniforms, gray with some kind of shoulder patch he cannot read from this distance, and a collar configuration that suggests a professional dress standard, a code, the particular visual grammar of people whose job involves being seen as official. They drive through his gate without stopping. His gate is not locked. It has not been locked on a Tuesday morning in 30 years, because a working cattle ranch requires constant access, and a locked gate at 8:40 on a weekday would be an operational inconvenience rather than a security measure. But a gate on a private ranch property is not an invitation. It is a boundary marker. The convention that governs it, in this valley, in this district, in 30 years of Decker's experience with every contractor, every county inspector, every neighbor and feed delivery driver, and occasional lost motorist who has needed to come onto this property, is that you stop at the gate. You call ahead, or you knock, or at minimum, you make eye contact with the property owner who is standing in the barn doorway, 40 feet away in plain sight, before you proceed down his access road. The men in the white SUV do not stop at the gate. They do not call ahead. They do not knock. They do not make eye contact with Decker, who is standing in the barn doorway with a feed bucket in his hand, in plain view, watching them enter his property with the particular expression of a man whose face does not yet show what he is thinking, but whose thinking is already well underway. The SUV moves down the interior access road at a pace that is neither hurried nor hesitant. The pace of a vehicle on a route its driver knows and considers routine. It follows the access road east past the equipment barn, past the water trough and the south pasture fence line, past the point where the road forks and the left fork goes to the upper pasture, and the right fork continues toward the creek crossing. The driver takes the right fork without hesitation. He knows the route, or he has driven it before, or he has a map of it, none of which explains how he came to be on the road in the first place. The SUV pauses at the creek crossing. It sits there for approximately 3 minutes, the engine idling, neither man getting out, the vehicle positioned at the crossing with the casual authority of a unit conducting a surveillance check, rather than two private citizens who have entered another person's property without permission. Decker watches from the barn doorway. He has not moved. He has set the feed bucket down, and he is watching with both hands free and the full focused attention of a man who has stopped doing other things, because this requires all of his observation. After 3 minutes at the crossing, the SUV turns around. It comes back up the access road the way it arrived. The same unhurried pace, the same casual confidence, the engine noise steady and purposeful. It passes the equipment barn. It passes the water trough. It comes back along the main access road toward the gate, and as it passes Decker at the barn doorway, close enough now that he can read the details he could not read from 40 feet, he looks at the shoulder patch on the driver's uniform. Pinnacle Estates Community Safety, Authorized Patrol. The words are arranged in 2 lines around a small shield graphic in the same gray as the uniform fabric. The whole thing embroidered with the professional finish of a custom patch order, rather than a printed label. Authorized Patrol. The words are chosen with care, not security guard, not private contractor, but Authorized Patrol. Language that borrows from the vocabulary of law enforcement without technically claiming to be law enforcement. That implies a sanction it does not specify, from an authority it does not name. Decker looks at the patch. He looks at the light bar. He looks at the driver, who is looking straight ahead through the windshield, with the forward-focused composure of a man executing a patrol route and not anticipating that the property owner he just drove past has any particular response to his presence. The SUV exits his gate and turns onto the ranch road, heading north toward the county road junction. Decker watches it go. The whole visit has taken 11 minutes. Neither man got out of the vehicle at any point. Neither man spoke to Decker, who was standing in visible range for the full duration of the entry and exit. Neither man acknowledged him, waved, slowed meaningfully as they passed him, or gave any indication that his presence on his own property was a factor in how they conducted their business on it. He takes his phone out of his shirt pocket and photographs the SUV's rear license plate as it moves away from the gate, close enough for a clean plate read, the image sharp in the clear August morning light. He checks the image, plate number legible. He puts the phone back in his pocket. He picks up the feed bucket and walks to the south fence to finish the morning rotation. He thinks as he walks, with the methodical and unhurried quality that characterizes everything he does when he is processing something that matters. He thinks about what he just saw. He sorts through it with the practical precision of a man who has spent 30 years making decisions on this land that have real consequences, and has learned to distinguish between the things that require immediate action and the things that require complete understanding before any action is appropriate. A private HOA patrol unit drove through his ranch without his permission. 2 men in gray uniforms with a light bar drove through his gate and down his road, and paused at his creek crossing and drove back out, as though the fact that this is his property were a detail that did not affect the calculus of whether they were authorized to be on it. The uniforms are not law enforcement uniforms. The patch says Pinnacle Estates Community Safety, a private HOA's internally branded patrol program. The vehicle is a privately contracted SUV with a light bar that is cosmetic rather than official, present because a light bar on a white SUV looks authoritative rather than because it is connected to any law enforcement authority. Decker knows the difference between official and official-like. He has lived adjacent to the Pinnacle Estates development since it was built in 1999, and has had 25 years of exposure to the HOA's particular administrative confidence, the confidence of a well-funded residential association that has never had anyone push back hard on the assumption that its community authority extends to the edges of its good opinion of itself, rather than to the edges of its legal jurisdiction. He finishes the south fence rotation. He washes the bucket. He goes to the tack room, where he keeps the ranch logbook on the shelf above the workbench, the same series of green-covered volumes his father kept on the same shelf before him. 30 years of ranch operational records in the same hand, the same format, the same discipline of documentation that his father taught him, because his father understood that a rancher's records are how you prove what happened on your own land, when someone else's account of it differs from yours. He opens the current volume to the first blank page. He writes the date, Tuesday, August 26th, in the top left corner. He writes the time, 8:40 a.m., entry, 8:51 a.m., exit. He writes the vehicle description, white full-size SUV, light bar roof mount, 2 occupants, gray uniforms with Pinnacle Estates Community Safety shoulder patch. He writes the plate number from the photograph. He writes the route. Main access road east to creek crossing. Return via same route. Duration, 11 minutes. Neither occupant exited the vehicle. Neither occupant communicated with property owner. Then he writes, in brackets at the end of the entry, the notation that will anchor every subsequent entry in the documentation record he is about to begin building. Not law enforcement. Confirm with county. Document every entry. He closes the logbook, picks up his phone, and calls Earl Briggs. Earl lives on the 12-acre parcel immediately north of the ranch boundary, a property he has owned since 2003, purchased after 22 years as a county sheriff's deputy when he retired, with the particular preference of career law enforcement officers for land where the nearest neighbor is not directly visible from the kitchen window. He is 64, deliberate, and has the professional habit of plain statement that comes from 2 decades of writing incident reports in the factual register that courts require. He answers on the second ring. Decker describes what he saw: the SUV, the uniforms, the patch, the light bar, the entry without permission, the 11 minutes on the ranch, the exit without communication. Earl listens without interrupting. When Decker finishes, Earl is quiet for approximately 4 seconds. The silence of a man consulting his professional knowledge against what he has just been told, and confirming the answer before he gives it. Then he says, in the flat and certain register of someone who spent 22 years knowing the difference, Pinnacle Estates HOA has no law enforcement authority. None. Their patrol people are private security contractors. Private security contractors have exactly the same legal right to enter private property without permission as any other private citizen, which is no right at all. The uniform is a uniform. The light bar is decoration. Neither one gives them any authority to be on your land without your say-so. Decker asks if there is a county registration for the patrol program. Any permit, any license, any formal authorization from the sheriff's office or the county that might give the patrol standing he is not aware of. Earl tells him there is no such registration. A private HOA patrol program does not require county authorization and does not receive county authority. It is a private security service dressed in colors that suggest official capacity without having any. Decker thanks him. Earl says one more thing before Decker ends the call. The thing that a retired sheriff's deputy says to a rancher neighbor who has just described 23 future logbook entries, without knowing yet that that is what he has described. Document every entry. Plate, time, duration, route. Every time. You want that record complete before you do anything else. Decker tells him he has already started. He ends the call, sets the phone on the workbench, and looks at the logbook. He does not call Pinnacle Estates HOA. He does not drive to the development office to speak to whoever authorized the patrol route. He does not post a sign at his gate, or send a letter, or make any outward indication to any person at the HOA that the Tuesday morning entry has registered as anything beyond the unremarkable morning it apparently appeared to be to the 2 men who conducted it. He goes back to work. Thursday morning at 8:55 a.m., the white SUV comes through his gate again. Same vehicle, same route, same 11-minute duration, same creek crossing pause, same exit without communication. Different driver. The shoulder patch reads the same, but the man in the uniform is younger than Tuesday's driver, thinner through the shoulders, driving with the same unhurried certainty as though the gate is a formality, and the road is a route, and the property it crosses is a corridor that his employer has authorized him to use. Decker photographs the plate from the barn doorway and opens the logbook. Thursday, August 28th, 8:55 a.m. entry, 9:06 a.m. exit. White SUV. Same vehicle as Tuesday, per plate confirmation. 1 occupant. Same route. Same duration. No communication. Second entry documented. He closes the logbook, makes a note to call Lois Faber the following week when he has at least a month of entries to show her, and goes to check the North Pasture water. He already knows, with the settled certainty of a man who has been paying attention to land and people for 56 years, that there will be a 3rd entry and a 4th and more after that, because the people who run the white SUV through his gate on Tuesday and Thursday believe that the uniform and the light bar and the HOA's stated community safety mandate are sufficient authorization for what they are doing, and people who believe that do not stop until something makes them stop. Decker intends to be the thing that makes them stop. He is in no hurry about it. he is going to let them build the record first. The Pinnacle Estates Community Safety Patrol Program did not begin with malice. It began with the particular combination of genuine concern, institutional confidence, and insufficient legal review that produces most HOA overreach. A board president who identified a real problem, pursued a real solution, and stopped asking questions at the precise point where the questions would have mattered most. Renata Voss has been the Pinnacle Estates HOA board president for 4 years. She is 55, organized, energetic, in the way of people who treat community leadership as a professional responsibility rather than a civic hobby. And she has spent her tenure building the kind of visible, tangible improvements to the Pinnacle Estates community that membership newsletters can feature in photographs. Resurfaced common area paths, upgraded entrance landscaping, a new fitness center in the clubhouse, and, most recently, the Community Safety Patrol Program that she considers the most significant achievement of her board tenure, and that she launched 8 months ago with the momentum of someone who has already committed to the outcome before the implementation details have been fully examined. The safety program originated in a legitimate concern, a series of incidents in the spring preceding the launch, in which unfamiliar vehicles had been seen in the development's common areas after dark, and one incident in which a storage unit in the eastern common facilities had been broken into and several pieces of landscaping equipment taken. These were real events. They produced real resident anxiety. The board meeting at which Renata presented the patrol program proposal drew 43 members, the highest attendance of any board meeting in 2 years, and the vote in favor was unanimous. She had contacted 3 private security firms and selected Sentinel Perimeter Services on the basis of its professional presentation, its comparable contract pricing, and the particular detail that its patrol vehicles had roof-mounted light bars, a visual deterrent element that Renata had specifically requested after reading a property security industry summary that identified marked vehicle visibility as the primary behavioral deterrent for opportunistic trespass. The Sentinel contract was 19 pages. The board approved it at the July meeting after Renata summarized its key terms: uniformed personnel, 2 marked vehicles, twice weekly perimeter patrols, a digital monitoring log accessible to the board, and a $67,000 annual fee funded through a special assessment levied on all 260-member households. The summary was accurate as far as it went. What it did not address, because Renata had not flagged it and the board had not read the full contract independently, was paragraph 14, which appeared in the section titled Operational Scope and Access Parameters, and which read, in the measured, expansive language of a contract drafted to give the service provider maximum operational flexibility. Sentinel Perimeter Services patrol operations shall encompass the contracted property perimeter and may include adjacent corridor access as operationally necessary to fulfill the security objectives of this agreement. Paragraph 14 was not reviewed by an attorney before the contract was signed. No member of the board asked what adjacent corridor access meant in practical terms, which properties it encompassed, what legal basis authorized entry to those properties, what notification or permission requirements applied before a Sentinel vehicle entered land that the HOA did not own. The phrase was in paragraph 14 of a 19-page contract reviewed in summary form at a board meeting on a Tuesday evening, and it passed without examination, the way contract language passes when people are focused on the outcome the contract is meant to produce, rather than the provisions that define how that outcome will be pursued. What Renata understood adjacent corridor access to mean, what she had communicated to the community in the newsletter announcing the patrol launch, in the tone of the announcement, if not its explicit text, was that the HOA's safety perimeter extended to the natural boundary of the development. The natural boundary on the western edge was Decker Pruitt's ranch. The ranch sat at the base of the slope below the development's western housing tier, its eastern pasture visible from the back windows of the 47 homes on the western edge of Pinnacle Estates. It was, in the spatial logic of Renata's community leadership, the western margin of the community's security concern. The developer's original community map, which Renata had encountered when she assumed the board presidency 4 years ago, and which she had subsequently had framed and mounted in the HOA clubhouse lobby as a piece of the community's developmental history, showed the Pruitt Ranch land in a tan wash labeled Undeveloped Adjacent Buffer Zone. The map was a planning sketch produced by the developer's graphic design team in 1999. for inclusion in the subdivision marketing materials. It was not a survey, it was not a legal instrument. It did not establish any boundary, any right, or any characterization of the adjacent land that had any bearing on the deed records in the county recorder's office. Renata did not know this. She looked at the framed map in the clubhouse lobby and saw a development with a natural western buffer. And when she approved the Sentinel patrol route, she approved a route that extended across that buffer and onto the ranch road beyond it. And she did so with the institutional confidence of a board president who has a framed map on the wall and a 19-page contract with paragraph 14 in it, and no attorney who has read either one carefully enough to identify the problem. Decker documents the patrol entries through the full month of September and all of October, with the same methodical discipline he established in the first logbook entry on Tuesday, August 26th. The white SUV comes through his gate on Tuesday and Thursday mornings with the regularity of a scheduled service, which is exactly what it is, from Sentinel's operational perspective, a contracted twice-weekly perimeter patrol, executing its assigned route on the schedule its client has paid for. It follows the same path every time, through the gate, down the main access road to the creek crossing, a pause of 2 to 4 minutes at the crossing, return via the same route, exit through the gate. The duration varies between 9 and 14 minutes, depending on the driver. The behavior is consistent. No vehicle exits, no communication with Decker, no acknowledgement of his presence on the days he is visible from the barn or the equipment yard. He photographs every entry from whatever position gives him the clearest plate and vehicle documentation. He notes every visit in the logbook, date, time of entry, time of exit, duration, vehicle description, number of occupants, route, any variation from the standard pattern. By the second week of October, the logbook has 20 entries in this series alone. By mid-October, it has 23. He calls the county sheriff's office in the second week of September, not because he doubts what Earl told him, but because he understands the difference between a neighbor's professional opinion and a documented official confirmation. And the documentation he is building needs official confirmation attached to it, rather than a phone call between adjacent landowners. He reaches a dispatcher on duty and asks a specific question. Is Sentinel Perimeter Services, a private security contractor operating on behalf of Pinnacle Estates HOA, registered with the county sheriff's office as an authorized patrol service? And do its personnel have any county-recognized authority to enter private property without the owner's permission? The dispatcher checks the registry. Sentinel Perimeter Services is a state-licensed private security contractor. It is not registered with the county sheriff's office as an authorized patrol service. Its personnel have no law enforcement authority of any kind. Their right to enter private property without permission is identical to that of any other private citizen, meaning they have no such right. The dispatcher delivers this in 2 sentences, the flat and efficient sentences of someone answering a factual question from a public record. And Decker thanks her, ends the call, and writes the confirmation in the logbook. County Sheriff's Office confirmed. Sentinel Perimeter Services. No law enforcement authority, no county registration, no right of entry to private property without owner permission. Dispatcher confirmed. Date, time. He calls Lois Faber in the last week of October. Lois has practiced property rights law in the Ranch and Lake District for 20 years. She is 52, direct, and has the particular professional quality of an attorney who has handled enough ranch boundary and access disputes to recognize, within the first 60 seconds of a client's description, which category a situation falls into and what the record-building requirements are for that category. Decker tells her everything in sequential order. The August 26th first entry, the 23 documented visits, the sheriff's office confirmation, the Sentinel contract language Earl described to him, the HOA newsletter, the developer's community map. He tells her about Renata's letter, which arrived in the third week of October, a single page on HOA letterhead, informing him that the patrol had identified his ranch's eastern boundary as a community security concern and requesting his cooperation with the patrol's access corridor requirements. He reads Lois the phrase from the letter, access corridor requirements. Lois is quiet for a moment. Access corridor requirements, she repeats, not a question. The careful repetition of an attorney noting language that will appear in a filing. She asks Decker to send her the complete documentation file, every logbook entry, every photograph, the letter, and anything else he has accumulated since August. He tells her it will be in her email by end of day. Then Lois tells him she wants to review the property records before she gives him a full assessment, specifically the deed records for the eastern boundary of his ranch and the access road leading to Pinnacle Estates. She has a preliminary question that the documentation summary has raised, and she wants to check the county recorder system before she says anything more about it. Decker asks what the question is. She tells him she is not ready to answer until she has confirmed it from the records. She tells him to give her a week. He tells her he has been patient since August. A week is not a problem. He ends the call and goes to feed the cattle on the evening rotation, the logbook closed on the tack room shelf with 23 entries in it. The white SUV, presumably parked in the Sentinel lot until Thursday morning, when it will come back through his gate for the 24th time and find him in the same barn doorway with the same camera and the same unhurried attention that has been there every time. The 24th entry is documented on Thursday, October 30th, at 9:02 a.m. Decker photographs the plate, writes the entry, caps the pen. He does not know yet what Lois has found in the county recorder's system. He does not know yet that the question she declined to answer on the phone is the question that will reverse the shape of everything that follows. He knows only what he has known since August 26th, that two men in gray uniforms drove through his gate without permission and kept doing it, and that a rancher who documents everything and reacts to nothing, who lets the record build until the record is complete, is a rancher whose position when the moment comes is precisely as strong as the patience he brought to building it. He closes the logbook. He goes back to work. Lois Faber reads Decker's documentation file on a Sunday evening, which is when she reads files that arrive on a Friday and require more than a preliminary scan before she can form a professional opinion about them. She reads sequentially, the logbook entries first, all 23 of them in date order, noting the consistency of the patrol pattern and the precision of Decker's documentation. The entries are the kind of records that a property rights attorney wants when she is building a trespass case. Specific, contemporaneous, consistent in format, cross-reference to photographic evidence, and written in the plain, factual language of a man who documents what he observes rather than what he concludes. Each entry identifies the vehicle, the personnel count, the entry and exit times, the route, and the duration. Each entry is dated and timed in the same hand, in the same logbook, in the unbroken, sequential record of a professional rancher who has kept operational logs since the day he took over the property. She reads the Sentinel contract next, all 19 pages, in the order they appear, with a legal pad beside her and a pen in her hand. She finds paragraph 14 on page 11. She reads it twice. She writes the full text on the legal pad and underlines the phrase adjacent corridor access as operationally necessary. She notes, on the legal pad beside the underline, a single word, meaningless, not in the colloquial sense, in the precise legal sense that a contractual provision between two parties cannot create a right against a third party who is not a party to the contract. Sentinel Perimeter Services and Pinnacle Estates HOA can agree between themselves to whatever operational scope they choose to describe in their service agreement. That agreement creates obligations and rights as between Sentinel and the HOA. It creates nothing as between Sentinel and Decker Pruitt, who did not sign the contract, was not consulted about the contract, and whose property rights are entirely unaffected by the language that appears in paragraph 14 of a document he has never seen. A private security contractor cannot grant itself entry rights to land its client does not own. The sentence does not require elaboration. It is simply true, in the unambiguous way of property law principles that have been settled for long enough that courts state them without extended analysis. She reads the HOA newsletter. She reads the developer's community map description, undeveloped adjacent buffer zone, with the attention of someone who has seen this particular category of developer-produced document in enough cases to recognize its legal status immediately. A marketing and planning instrument with no survey basis, no recorded legal standing, and no authority to characterize a neighboring landowner's private property as anything other than what the deed says it is. She reads Renata's cooperation request letter, which Decker forwarded with the initial file package. She reads the phrase, access corridor requirements, and writes it on the legal pad below the paragraph 14 notation. She sets the file down and picks it back up. Then she opens the county recorder's online database and begins pulling the property records for the Pruitt Ranch's eastern boundary. She has a question that the file has raised, a question that is not about the trespass documentation, which is straightforward and complete, but about the physical geography of the situation that produced it. The Pinnacle Estates development sits on the plateau east of Decker's ranch. The Sentinel Patrol route runs through the ranch to the creek crossing and back. But the patrol route is not the only road between the development and the county highway. There is a primary access road, the road that 260 households use every day, and its eastern terminus connects to the development's entrance off the county highway. She has driven it herself, years ago, on a matter involving a client at the northern end of the valley, and she has a specific recollection of the road's geometry at the point where it transitions from the county road system to the development's internal network. She pulls the county road terminus records for that section. The county road ends 340 feet west of the Pinnacle Estates' eastern entrance. She cross-references this against the Pruitt Ranch deed. The 340 feet between the county road terminus and the development entrance runs through a strip of land that was conveyed to Decker's father, Raymond Pruitt, in 1973 as part of the original ranch purchase. A strip of valley floor land that Raymond acquired along with the surrounding ranch acreage as a single transaction, recorded cleanly, no encumbrances. The strip transferred to Decker in 1995, when Raymond conveyed the ranch, recorded under the same instrument that transferred the rest of the property. She checks for easements, right-of-way grants, access agreements, and recorded instruments of any kind affecting the strip. There are none. The 1999 developer, the same company whose planning sketch hangs framed in Renata's lobby, extended the development's access road through the strip as part of the construction project that connected the plateau development to the county highway. The county road connection permit application, which she finds in the county public works records, describes the final 340-foot section as existing right-of-way connection to county road system. The county public works office approved the connection on the basis of that description, without pulling the parcel deed to confirm it. The description was false when it was written. The strip was not an existing right-of-way. It was private land belonging to the Pruitt family, and it had been private land since 1973, and the developer built a road through it in 1999 without an easement, without a recorded right-of-way, and without any payment to or negotiation with the Pruitt family. Lois sets the laptop down. She sits with this for a moment, not because it surprises her exactly, but because the combination of what she has found in the trespass file and what she has just found in the county recorder's system is the kind of combination that requires a deliberate pause before you pick up the phone, because the call you are about to make will change the shape of your client's situation in a direction he is not currently expecting. And that kind of call deserves to be made with full clarity rather than the momentum of immediate discovery. She calls Decker the following morning. She tells him about the trespass documentation first, in the order of the file's organization, because that is the presentation structure that serves his understanding best. Here is what you have. Here is why it is sufficient. Here is what it means legally. The 23 patrol entries constitute trespass under state property law, unauthorized entry on private land by agents of a third party, repeated and documented over an 8-week period, without the property owner's permission and without any legal basis derived from the Sentinel contract or the HOA's community authority. The adjacent corridor access language in paragraph 14 of the Sentinel contract creates no right of entry to Pruitt land. It is a contractual provision between two private parties that has no effect on the property rights of a landowner who is not party to the agreement. 23 entries, each photographed, each logged with time, duration, and route, each confirmed as trespass by a sheriff's office verification that Decker obtained and documented in September. That is the first observation. Then she tells him about the road. She tells him what she found in the county recorder's database, the road strip, the 1973 conveyance to his father, the 1995 transfer to him, the absence of any recorded encumbrance of any kind. She tells him what the county road records show, the terminus point 340 feet from the development entrance. She tells him what the 1999 developer's permit application said, existing right-of-way connection, and what the parcel deed shows that description to have been. She tells him that the 340 feet of road that connects Pinnacle Estates to the county highway runs through his property, that it has run through his property since the development was built. that 260 households have been using that road for 25 years without any recorded legal right to do so. Decker is quiet for a long moment. It is not the silence of surprise exactly. It is the silence of a man who is locating a piece of information in the landscape of his own property knowledge, and finding that it fits in a place he did not previously understand it occupied. He has driven that road strip hundreds of times. He has seen the development's access road connect to the county highway at the eastern end of the valley floor. He has never had occasion to examine the strip ownership specifically, because the strip has never been a point of friction. It has simply been there, part of the valley floor, part of the approach to the development, part of the geography that 25 years of daily use has made feel like established infrastructure. He asks Lois to confirm it fully before he makes any decisions. She tells him her title specialist will have a complete chain of title analysis finished within the week. Until then, the preliminary finding is clear from the county recorder's records, and she is confident it will survive full title analysis, but she will not act on it until the confirmation is in hand. He thanks her and ends the call. 3 days later, on a Thursday morning, Renata's letter arrives in Decker's mailbox. It is a single page on Pinnacle Estates' HOA letterhead, formal and register, carrying the administrative weight of an official board communication, rather than the casual language of a neighbor requesting a favor. It states that the Pinnacle Estates Community Safety Patrol Program has identified Decker's ranch's eastern boundary as an area of community security concern. It states that the HOA requests his cooperation with the patrol program's access corridor requirements as part of the community's comprehensive safety initiative. It describes the patrol access as a necessity for the protection of community residents. It invites him to contact the HOA's community liaison if he has questions about the program. It does not identify any legal basis for the access corridor requirement. It does not acknowledge that Decker's property is private land, to which the HOA has no right of access. It does not cite any recorded instrument, any easement, any right-of-way, or any provision of any agreement to which Decker is a party. It is a letter from a board president who believes that the authority of the office, the letterhead, and the phrase "community safety necessity" constitute sufficient basis for requesting a neighboring landowner's cooperation with a patrol program that has been entering his property without permission for 8 weeks. Decker reads it standing at the mailbox, the way he reads all correspondence that arrives from the HOA, completely, from the first word to the last, without skimming, with the particular attention of a man who understands that official-sounding letters derive their power from being read less carefully than they deserve. He carries it inside, photographs it, and emails the image to Lois with a single line of text. Third document, your file. Lois calls him 2 hours later. Not about the letter. The title analysis is back, she says. The strip confirmation is complete. Her tone carries something that Decker has learned to recognize across 3 years of working with her. The specific register of an attorney who has found the instrument that reorganizes a case around a new center of gravity. Not excitement exactly. The settled, certain quality of a professional who has confirmed what she expected to confirm, and is now ready to proceed from confirmed ground rather than preliminary finding. She tells him the chain of title analysis is unambiguous. The strip is his. The county road ends where the records show it ends. The development's access road crosses 340 feet of fee simple Pruitt property with no recorded easement, no right-of-way grant, no access agreement of any kind. The developer's 1999 permit application described the strip as existing right-of-way, and the parcel deed confirms that description was false at the time it was written. 260 households, Lois says, have been driving across your property to get to their homes for 25 years without a legal right to do it. Decker looks out the kitchen window toward the eastern boundary, toward the road that runs along the valley floor, the road he has driven and crossed and worked around every day for 30 years. The road that has been part of the landscape of this ranch so long that its legal status never required examination until an HOA patrol program drove a white SUV through his gate 23 times, and a property rights attorney pulled the county deed records on a Sunday evening and found what the developer's framed planning sketch was never going to show anyone. He asks Lois what comes next. She tells him the survey commission, the full title analysis documentation, and then the Bollards. He asks about the Bollards. She tells him it is his road strip. He can install whatever access control structures he chooses on his own property, at any time, for any reason, without notice to or consent from the HOA or its attorneys, or its 260-member households. She recommends installing them simultaneously with the closure notice and the complaint filing, so that by the time Renata reads the deed attached to the notice, the physical reality of the road situation is already standing in concrete on Decker's property, rather than existing as a legal abstraction on a page. She pauses. She sent you a letter requesting your cooperation with her access corridor requirements, Lois says. You're going to show her what an access corridor looks like when the property owner decides to define it himself. Decker sets the phone down on the kitchen table and looks at the window for a moment. Then he goes to the barn to check on the morning feed rotation. And on his way, he stops at the tack room and opens the logbook and adds one final entry in the 23-entry series. Not a patrol record this time, but a notation in the margin beside the October 30th entry, the last documented unauthorized patrol visit. Confirmation received, road strip, Pruitt deed, fee simple, no encumbrance, survey pending, Bollards pending, file building. He caps the pen. The white SUV will come back Tuesday morning, the way it has come back every Tuesday morning since August. He will photograph it. He will log it. He will let it complete its route and exit through his gate one more time. He is almost ready. Lois Faber builds legal records the way Decker Pruitt builds fence lines, from the ground up, in sequence, with every element verified before the next one is added. Because a record built on an unverified assumption fails at exactly the moment it is most needed. She begins with the survey. Carson Webb is one of 2 licensed land surveyors in the Valley District, whose field methodology Lois trusts for litigation-grade work. The standard where every measurement is tied to a recorded monument, every margin of error is documented, and the certified plat that results from the field work can withstand the adversarial scrutiny of opposing counsel, looking for a flaw that would give a judge reason to question the instrument. She has used Carson on 6 previous ranch boundary matters. She calls him in the first week of November with the assignment parameters. A full boundary survey of the Pruitt Ranch's eastern edge, with specific emphasis on the road strip, the 340-foot section between the county road terminus and the Pinnacle Estates development entrance. She tells Carson what the preliminary deed research shows. She tells him she needs the certified plat to map the county road terminus against the recorded Pruitt boundary at that location, to document the road's position on the strip relative to the deed line, and to confirm the absence of any physical survey monument or marking that would suggest a historical right-of-way establishment prior to the 1999 road extension. Carson asks when he needs to have the plat completed. Lois tells him 3 weeks is workable, if his field schedule allows. He begins field work the second week of November, working from the 1973 Pruitt purchase deed and the county boundary monument system. His approach to the eastern boundary is methodical. He sets his total station at the southern reference monument and works north along the recorded property line, confirming its position against the physical landscape and, specifically, against the road surface that runs through the strip. The county road terminus is marked by a county public works boundary monument, a standard iron pin set in concrete at the edge of the county-maintained road surface, documented in the county's road maintenance records. Carson locates it on his first field day. He measures its position against the Pruitt deed boundary and notes the relationship in his field log. The county road boundary monument sits precisely at the western edge of the Pruitt strip, at the recorded deed boundary of the 1973 purchase. The county road ends here. Everything east of this point is Pruitt land. He surveys the road surface from the monument east to the development entrance. 340 feet of gravel and asphalt road running through fee simple Pruitt property, connecting the county road system to the Pinnacle Estates internal network. He measures the road width, the surface composition, the position of the road center line relative to the deed boundary. He looks for physical evidence of any historical right-of-way, a dedicated right-of-way marker, a county road extension monument, any instrument post or boundary mark that would suggest the strip's road use was established through a formal process rather than the developer's unilateral extension. He finds none. His field work takes the 3 weeks Lois allocated, 2 weeks on the eastern boundary strip, and 1 week completing the broader ranch boundary documentation she requested for the enclosing survey context. His certified plat is finished in the last week of November, a full legal instrument mapping the Pruitt Ranch's eastern boundary against the road strip position with sub-inch precision, the county road terminus identified and tied to the monument, the 340-foot private land section measured and labeled, and Carson's professional seal and license number on the certification page alongside his signature. The notation at the eastern road section reads, in Carson's professional shorthand, County Road Terminus at recorded Pruitt deed boundary, 340.3 feet of access road on fee simple Pruitt property. No easement monument, no right-of-way marker, no physical evidence of recorded access authorization. Road surface consistent with 1999-era construction. Lois adds the plat to the growing file. Marcus Cole's chain of title analysis runs parallel to Carson's survey work and arrives in the second week of November. 12 pages, organized chronologically from the 1973 Pruitt purchase to the present. Every recorded instrument affecting the strip identified and characterized. Marcus has been doing title work in the district for 16 years, and his analysis method is the same one Lois relies on for its particular strength in litigation. He does not summarize the chain, he traces it. Every instrument, every conveyance, every lien and encumbrance and notation that has affected the parcel in 50 years of recorded ownership history is identified by instrument number, recording date, and legal effect. The analysis does not reach conclusions the chain does not support. It reports what exists and what does not. What exists? The 1973 conveyance of the strip to Raymond Pruitt as part of the ranch purchase, clean and unencumbered. The 1995 conveyance to Decker, equally clean. The county boundary monument record confirming the road terminus position. The county public works permit approving the 1999 road extension, attached as an exhibit. What does not exist? An easement, a right-of-way grant, a dedication instrument, an access agreement, a prescriptive use claim, any recorded instrument of any kind that establishes a legal right for any party to use the strip for road access purposes. The 1999 permit application is the document Marcus flags most specifically. He quotes the relevant section in his analysis, the description of the final 340-foot road extension as existing right-of-way connection to county road system, and annotates it with the deed record date. The strip was conveyed to Raymond Pruitt in 1973, 26 years before the permit application was written, under instrument number that has been in the county recorder system continuously since that recording. The description of the strip as existing right-of-way was not an error of investigation. It was a characterization made in the absence of investigation. The developer's permit application describing the strip as something the deed records would have immediately contradicted if anyone had pulled them. Marcus's conclusion on page 12 is 4 sentences. The road strip is the fee simple property of Decker Pruitt. It has been Pruitt property since 1973. No legal right of road access over the strip has ever been established by any recorded instrument. The 260 households of Pinnacle Estates have used the road across it for 25 years without any recorded legal authorization. Lois adds the analysis to the file. The trespass documentation builds itself from what Decker has already assembled, but Lois organizes it for litigation with the specific structure that a trespass case requires when the defendant is likely to argue that the entries were authorized by a contractual provision. She pulls the Sentinel contract again and prepares a 1-page legal analysis of paragraph 14's effect on third-party property rights, which is 0, documented in the same flat, precise language she uses for every legal analysis in a file that is intended for a judge rather than a negotiating table. She obtains from the county recorder a certified copy of the developer's 1999 permit application, the document Marcus cited in his analysis. The certified copy carries the county clerk's seal and is a public record instrument that cannot be disputed, altered, or retracted. Its false characterization of the strip is now a permanent exhibit in the file. The developer's own words describing private land as existing right-of-way in an application that the county approved on the basis of a description nobody verified. She organizes Decker's 23 logbook entries into a formatted exhibit: date, time, duration, route, vehicle description, photographic reference. a chart that presents the patrol entry record in the visual format that makes the pattern immediately legible to a judge reading it for the first time. 23 entries across 8 weeks, twice weekly, consistent route, no communication with property owner, no permission sought or granted. She appends Earl Briggs's written statement. Earl had called her directly in the second week of November, after Decker told him Lois would want a formal statement. Earl's statement is 4 pages, notarized, written in the direct language of a former law enforcement officer who understands the evidentiary requirements for a statement that will serve as an exhibit. He describes his 22 years as a county sheriff's deputy and his knowledge of private security contractor authority under state law. He describes the conversation with Decker on August 26th and the information he provided about Sentinel's non-law enforcement status. He describes his personal observation of 3 Sentinel patrol vehicle entries through Decker's gate during the documentation period. Observations from his own property line, dated and timed in his personal notes, consistent with the logbook entries Decker made on the same dates. He signs the statement with his full name and former badge number. The badge number, not required, but included by habit, and by the professional understanding that credentials establish credibility in documents that will be read by people who need to assess both. Lois calls Decker on a Tuesday in the 3rd week of November. She tells him the survey is certified and sealed. She tells him the title analysis is complete and confirmed. She tells him the trespass record is 23 entries deep, with an Earl Briggs statement attached, and a sheriff's office confirmation note in the file. She tells him the road strip is his, clean deed, no encumbrances. The county road ends precisely where Carson's plat says it ends, 340.3 feet from the development entrance. Then she tells him the complaint is drafted, 43 pages, 8 exhibits, ready for filing when he decides on the timing. Decker asks about the Bollards. Lois has been waiting for the question. She has thought about the Bollards since Decker first mentioned the idea in an email in early November. The specific physical response to a situation that is both a trespass claim and a road strip claim. The installation that makes the legal position visible rather than merely stated. She tells him the Bollards are entirely within his legal rights. The road strip is his property. He can install access control structures on his own land at any time, for any reason, at his own discretion, without notice to the HOA, without consent from any party, and without any requirement to explain himself to anyone before, during, or after the installation. She recommends installing them simultaneously with the complaint filing and the closure notice delivery, not before, which would give the HOA time to seek a temporary restraining order before the full legal record is in front of a judge, and not after, which would allow the HOA to read the complaint and take preemptive legal steps before the physical reality of the situation has established itself. Simultaneously, complaint filed, closure notice delivered, Bollards in concrete. By the time Renata reads the deed on page 3 of the closure notice attachment, the Bollards will already be standing. Decker thanks her. He ends the call, picks up his truck keys, and drives to the Valley hardware supplier to ask about post-fabrication. On his way back, he stops at the Eastern Road Strip, parks on the county road side of the Terminus Monument, and gets out of the truck. He stands at the boundary line for a moment. The monument pin is visible at the road edge, the small iron marker that Carson Webb tied his survey to, the physical point where the county's road system ends and his property begins. The road runs east from where he is standing, 340.3 feet of gravel and asphalt, crossing his land to the Pinnacle Estates entrance. 25 years of daily use by 260 households. None of it recorded. None of it authorized. None of it based on anything except the developer's 1999 permit application and the county planning office's failure to pull the deed. He looks at the road for a long moment. Then he takes his phone out and calls the Bollard fabrication supplier in the county seat. 4-inch steel, standard ranch boundary post specification, dark green powder coat, 3 units, delivery within 10 days. He orders them standing at the monument line on his own road strip in the November afternoon light, the same unhurried voice he uses for every operational decision on this ranch. And he drives home. He opens the logbook that evening and writes 1 entry. Bollards ordered, survey certified, title confirmed, filing ready, waiting on delivery. He caps the pen, closes the logbook, and goes to feed the cattle. The Bollards arrive on a Friday afternoon, delivered on a flatbed from the fabrication supplier in the county seat. 3 steel posts, 4 inches in diameter, dark green powder coat, cut to specification, capped at the top with a standard flat plate weld. Decker unloads them himself and stores them in the equipment barn beside the post hole digger and the concrete bags he'd picked up from the Valley hardware supplier earlier that week. He stacks the concrete bags on a pallet, 3 bags per post, 9 bags total, and sets the level and the tamping bar on the shelf above them. He does not install them Friday. He does not install them over the weekend. He has a specific date in mind, a Tuesday, the standard Sentinel patrol day, the day the white SUV has come through his gate 23 times across the previous 3 months. He wants the bollards in the ground and the concrete cured before the patrol arrives. He has confirmed with Lois that the complaint filing is ready to go on the same morning and that the certified mail, the closure notice, the complaint summary, the deed exhibit, will leave her office at the same time the filing is processed at the county courthouse. Simultaneous. He has been thinking about that word since Lois used it in November. Not before, not after. At the same moment. The complaint filed, the notice in the mail, the bollards in concrete, all of it happening in the same morning window, so that by the time anyone at Pinnacle Estates has read the first page of the closure notice, the physical reality it describes is already standing at the road strip. He sets the alarm for 5:30 on Tuesday morning. He is at the road strip before 6, in the dark of an early December morning, with a headlamp and the truck's work lights illuminating the boundary line. He marks the 3 post positions with spray paint, center of road, 1/3 from the southern edge, 1/3 from the northern edge, spacing them to allow pedestrian passage on either side, while closing the gap to any vehicle wider than a standard ranch ATV. He uses the county road terminus monument as his reference point, setting the center post position 8 feet east of the monument, on his property, past the legal line, with room enough between the monument and the post line that the county's road surface is not disturbed. The post hole digger breaks ground at 6:15. The soil at the road strip is compacted valley floor. Good digging, firm enough to hold a formed hole cleanly, but yielding enough to work at a reasonable pace. He digs each hole to regulation depth, sets the post, checks it with the level from both the north-south and east-west planes, adjusts, checks again. He does not rush. The level says when a post is plumb. He mixes the first concrete bag at 6:50, pours the first hole, and moves to the second while the initial pour begins its set. He works the way he works everything on this ranch, with the quiet, complete attention of a man for whom doing a task correctly the first time is not a professional standard, but a personal one. The habit of 30 years of maintaining infrastructure that has to function, in weather, in use, in time, without the option of a return visit to fix what the first installation got wrong. The second hole is dug and poured by 7:50, the third by 8:40. He levels the third post for the 4th time, confirms the plumb from every angle, and steps back. 3 dark green steel posts across the road strip at the county terminus line, 9 concrete bags curing around their bases, space to stop a vehicle and pass a person, functional and permanent, and saying exactly what they need to say without elaborating. He attaches the laminated notice to the center post at 9:05. He had the notice laminated at the Valley print shop the previous week. White cardstock, black text, clean and readable at the distance a driver would first see it when approaching from the development entrance. Private property, Pruitt Ranch. Road access beyond this point subject to owner authorization. Contact Lois Faber, Faber Property Law, for inquiries. Not a threat, not an explanation. A statement of legal fact and a referral to counsel. The minimal communication of a property owner who has a 43-page complaint filed at the county courthouse describing the fuller situation for anyone who wishes to understand it. He takes a photograph of the installed bollards from the county roadside, all 3 posts, the center notice readable, the county road terminus monument visible at the lower left of the frame. He texts the photograph to Lois with a single word. Done. Lois replies in 4 minutes. Filing now. The civil complaint is 43 pages and 8 exhibits, transmitted to the county courthouse filing system at 9:30 on Tuesday morning, December 4th, and assigned a case number before 10 a.m. The complaint names Pinnacle Estates, HOA, and Sentinel Perimeter Services as defendants. Its causes of action are trespass, 23 documented entries on private property without owner permission or legal authorization, and declaratory relief on the road strip, seeking a judicial declaration confirming Pruitt ownership and the absence of any access right in the defendants or any party claiming through them. Exhibit A is the Pruitt Ranch deed, the 1973 conveyance to Raymond, and the 1995 transfer to Decker. Exhibit B is Marcus Cole's 12-page chain of title analysis. Exhibit C is Carson Webb's certified survey plat, with the county road terminus marked and the 340.3 feet of Pruitt property measured and labeled. Exhibit D is the developer's 1999 permit application with the false existing right-of-way description. Exhibit E is the 23-entry trespass documentation chart with photographic references. Exhibit F is the Sentinel contract with paragraph 14 annotated. Exhibit G is the HOA newsletter and Renata's cooperation request letter. Exhibit H is Earl Briggs's notarized statement. At 9:32, simultaneously with the courthouse filing, the certified mail package leaves Lois Faber's office, the closure notice, the complaint summary, the deed exhibit, and a cover letter on Faber property law letterhead, advising the Pinnacle Estates HOA board that the road strip crossing its primary access road is fee simple Pruitt property, and that road access authorization has been withdrawn, pending resolution of the filed complaint. At 9:30, the white Sentinel SUV is approximately 40 minutes from the gate. Decker knows this from 3 months of documented Tuesday morning arrival times. He parks his truck on the ranch road side of the Bollard line, takes the camera out of the cab, and waits. The Sentinel SUV turns off the county road at 10:43. The driver follows the approach road at the standard patrol speed, no urgency, no variation from the habitual route, and rounds the final curve of the approach to the road strip at 10:46. The driver sees the bollards at approximately 200 feet. He slows. He continues at reduced speed to the bollard line and stops the SUV with the front bumper 4 feet from the center post. He reads the laminated notice. Decker can see him reading it from the ranch road. The driver's head still, his attention on the notice text, the stillness of someone encountering an obstacle they did not expect and are taking a moment to process. The driver sits in the vehicle for a long moment. Then he picks up his radio and calls his dispatcher. Decker photographs the stopped vehicle from the ranch road. Plate visible, bollards in the foreground, laminated notice readable at the distance, and opens the logbook on the truck's bench seat. He writes the entry in his habitual format. 10:47 a.m., December 4th. Sentinel unit stopped at Bollard line. Driver read notice. Radioed dispatcher. Did not proceed. Duration, 14 minutes. Departed 11:01 a.m. He photographs the entry, caps the pen, and watches the SUV execute a 3-point turn at the Bollard line and drive back down the approach road toward the county highway. The white SUV disappears around the curve. Decker closes the logbook. The Pinnacle Estates HOA office is in the community clubhouse at the development's northern end, a set of administrative rooms behind the fitness center, where a part-time office manager handles correspondence and community communications on a Tuesday through Thursday schedule. The certified mail package arrives at 11:15. Renata is in the office that morning, working on the December newsletter, when the office manager brings her the certified mail envelope with the Faber property law return address. She opens it at 11:40. She reads the cover letter first. The cover letter is 1 page and contains 3 numbered paragraphs. The first paragraph identifies the enclosed complaint and its case number. The second paragraph states that the Pruitt Ranch Road strip, specifically described as the 340-foot section of road connecting the Pinnacle Estates eastern entrance to the county road terminus, is the fee simple property of Decker Pruitt under the deed identified in Exhibit A, and that road access authorization across this strip has been withdrawn effective the date of this notice. The third paragraph refers all inquiries to Faber property law, and notes that the filed complaint is a public record available at the county courthouse. She turns to Exhibit C. Carson Webb's certified plat is a full, legal-sized document. The survey lines, the boundary markers, the road strip measured and labeled, the county terminus monument identified, the 340.3-foot encroachment dimension printed in the precise notation of a certified survey instrument. The notation she reads first, because it is the element of the plat that her eye goes to when she locates the road. County Road terminus at recorded Pruitt deed boundary, 340.3 feet of access road on fee simple Pruitt property. No easement monument, no right-of-way marker, no physical evidence of recorded access authorization. She sits with the plat for a long moment. Then she picks up the phone and calls Sentinel Perimeter Services. She reaches the operations manager and tells him, in the flat tone of someone who has not yet fully processed what she has just read, that the patrol program is suspended pending legal review. The operations manager confirms receipt and notes that the Tuesday patrol has already reported a bollard installation at the road strip access point. Renata ends the call. She calls the HOA's attorney, a general practice firm in the county seat that handled the HOA's previous matter involving a fence dispute between two member households. The call goes to voicemail. She leaves a message that is longer than she intends it to be, with more detail than voicemail requires, and she hangs up and sits in the office with the certified mail package open in front of her and the December newsletter draft still open on the computer screen behind it. The development's residents begin coming home from work at 4:30. The first car reaches the Bollard line at 4:42, a resident from the Western housing tier, running a standard evening commute at the end of a standard workday, who turns from the county road onto the approach road and drives toward the development entrance and finds 3 dark green steel posts across the road at the 400-foot mark, with a laminated notice on the center one. He stops. He reads the notice. He looks at the posts. He calls his neighbor. By 5:15, there are 7 vehicles backed up on the approach road. By 5:30, there are 14. By 5:45, there are more, the normal evening return pattern for 260 households, compressing into a bottleneck at the Bollard line. Residents reading the laminated notice and looking at the posts and making phone calls, some of them calling the HOA office, some of them calling each other, some of them getting out of their vehicles and standing at the Bollard line in the December evening air, looking at the posts and then looking east at the development entrance 340 feet beyond it, and working through the arithmetic of what a closed road means for the particular physical geography of a development with one access point. Earl Briggs has been parked at the county road intersection since 4:15. His truck backed into the pull-off on the county road shoulder, his window down in the December cold, watching the approach road with the unhurried attention of a man who has known this moment was coming and wanted to see it in person. He counts the vehicles. He watches the residents standing at the Bollard line. He watches the phones come out, the calls made, the conversations that are happening at the front bumpers of idling cars in the failing December light. He picks up his phone at 5:45 and calls Decker. "They're stacking up," Earl says. "I know," Decker says. There is a pause on the line, the comfortable pause of 2 men who have been neighbors for 30 years and who understand each other well enough that the silence carries its own meaning. "How many?" Decker asks. "I count 18, Earl says. "More coming." Decker thanks him. He ends the call and looks at the logbook still open on the truck seat, the day's final entry written in the same hand as the 23 that preceded it. The series that began on August 26th with a white SUV through a gate and ends here on December 4th, with 18 cars at a Bollard line and a 43-page complaint filed at the county courthouse and the certified survey of a road strip that a developer built on private land 25 years ago without asking anyone's permission. He closes the logbook. He drives back to the ranch to feed the cattle. The bollards stand through Tuesday night undisturbed. There is no attempt to move them, no attempt to remove the laminated notice, no attempt by any party to breach the Bollard line. The development sits on the plateau, with its one access road blocked at the 340-foot mark, its residents managing the first closed road evening through the 3 alternatives available to them, parking at the county road pull-off and walking the 340 feet to the entrance, calling neighbors with access to a secondary ATV trail that runs along the development's northern ridge, or simply not going home Tuesday night and making arrangements accordingly. The inconvenience is real, but manageable for one evening. What it produces by Wednesday morning is not logistical crisis, but information. The particular kind of information that spreads through a 260-household community overnight, when every member of that community has a phone and something urgent to discuss. Dennis Cho has been a civil engineer for 26 years and a Pinnacle Estates homeowner since 2006. He bought his home on the development's eastern tier because of the view of the valley floor, and because the commute to his firm's office in the county seat was manageable on the access road. He has driven that road 10,000 times in 18 years, without once having occasion to examine the legal basis of his right to use it, because that is how roads work in the ordinary experience of daily life. They are there, they are used, their legal underpinning is invisible until the moment it becomes relevant. Tuesday evening is the moment it becomes relevant. He parks at the county road pull-off at 5:50, reads the laminated notice on the center bollard, and walks home through the December dusk carrying his work bag. He does not call anyone on the walk. He is thinking. At 9 p.m., he opens the county parcel database on his laptop and begins pulling records. He pulls the 1973 Pruitt land purchase deed. He pulls the county road maintenance records for the approach section. He finds the road terminus monument record and identifies its position. He cross-references the terminus position against the 1973 deed boundary. He reads Lois Faber's closure notice. Several residents photographed it at the Bollard line and posted the image to the HOA resident forum within an hour of the evening commute backup. So by 9 p.m. on Tuesday, it is already available to any forum member who wants to read it. He reads it carefully, as a professional who understands legal instruments reads a legal instrument, for what it says, and for the document it references, and for the gap between the two. He pulls the 1999 developer permit application from the County Public Works database, which is a public record. He reads the existing right-of-way connection language. He checks the 1973 deed date against the permit application date. He sits back and looks at the screen. At 5:30 Wednesday morning, he opens the HOA resident forum and writes a post with the title, "The Road Strip, What the County Records Actually Show." It is not a forum post in the ordinary social register of community online discussion. It is a document. He describes his methodology, the specific county databases he accessed, the specific records he pulled, the specific cross-references he performed. He explains the county road terminus location in plain terms. He explains the 1973 conveyance to Raymond Pruitt and the 1995 transfer to Decker. He explains the absence of any recorded easement, any right-of-way grant, any access instrument of any kind covering the strip. He explains what he found in the developer's 1999 permit application and what the description existing right-of-way means against the background of the 1973 deed. He does not editorialize. He identifies what the records show and what they do not show, and he posts it at 5:30 a.m. on a Wednesday and goes to make coffee. The forum generates 47 replies by 6 a.m. It generates 112 by 7. It generates 209 by 8 and 290 by 9, by which time the thread has branched into 16 sub-conversations, covering the legal situation, the developer's conduct in 1999, the HOA board's failure to identify the road strip issue, the Sentinel Patrol program and its connection to the trespass complaint, and the logistical question of what 260 households do for road access while a civil complaint works through the county court system. The volume of the forum activity is not anger exactly, not at first, not in the morning hours. It is the particular energy of a large community encountering a structural problem that they understand, from Dennis Cho's technical post, to be real and well documented, and not susceptible to dismissal as an overreach or a misunderstanding. The Bollards are standing on Decker Pruitt's legal property. The road has been crossing his land for 25 years without authorization. These are facts in the county recorder system that anyone with a laptop can confirm, and 23 Pinnacle Estates residents do confirm them through the course of Wednesday morning, posting their own research findings to the thread and arriving at the same place Dennis arrived at 5:30. By 9 a.m., 7 residents have posted direct questions to the board's forum account, asking when an emergency meeting will be called, what the board knew and when, and whether the HOA's legal review process had ever examined the road strip before the Bollard installation. Renata has been reading the forum since 6 a.m. She calls Patrick Swell at 7. Patrick is the land use attorney the HOA retains for matters beyond its general counsel's property law expertise. A specialist brought in on development boundary issues, municipal entitlement matters, and, now, the particular category of case in which a community's primary road access has been built on private land without an easement, and that land's owner has filed a civil complaint and installed bollards on the same Tuesday morning. He has been doing land use law for 18 years, and he reviewed Decker's complaint the previous evening, starting at 7 p.m. and finishing at 10:30, reading every exhibit in sequence with the attention of an attorney who wants to form his own assessment of the evidentiary record before he speaks to his client. He tells Renata on the 7 a.m. call that he needs to see the board Wednesday evening. He tells her he will have a complete assessment by then. He tells her the forum activity is not relevant to the legal situation, but that the legal situation is serious enough that the board needs to understand it before the membership community session, because what he has to tell them should be heard first in the closed governance context, rather than in the public membership format. Renata calls an emergency board meeting for Wednesday evening, 6:30 for the closed board session, 7:30 for the general membership. The drive into and out of the development on Wednesday is managed through the Northern Ridge ATV Trail, which the HOA has opened to vehicle traffic on a temporary basis, and through carpooling arrangements organized in the forum. The trail is not rated for the volume, and 2 residents with low clearance vehicles use it, and confirm in the forum that the surface is manageable but not comfortable. The secondary access inconvenience is a daily reminder, distributed across 260 households, that the situation is not abstract. Patrick arrives at the HOA clubhouse at 6:15. He carries a briefcase that contains a copy of the complaint, the 8 exhibits tabbed, and a 2-page assessment he has prepared for the board, in the disciplined format of an attorney who has found that delivering unwelcome legal analysis is most effective when it is organized, definitive, and delivered without the hedging that gives clients false room to argue against conclusions that the record does not support. He sets the briefcase on the conference table in the boardroom. Renata is already there, with the 4 other board members. Iris Tamboli, a former land use planner in her 3rd year on the board. 2 residential members named Carl Pruitt and Yolanda Marsh, neither of whom have legal backgrounds, and the board treasurer, Howard Sella, who has been checking the reserve fund balance since Tuesday evening. Patrick opens the briefcase and places the assessment page on the table and does not preamble. He tells them the road strip deed is clean, the 1973 conveyance to Raymond Pruitt, the 1995 transfer to Decker, the chain of title analysis run by Marcus Cole, all confirmed in litigation grade. Carson Webb's certified survey is a legally defensible instrument prepared by a licensed professional to the evidentiary standard that a court will accept. The county road terminus is where it has always been. The 340 feet between the terminus and the development entrance has been Pruitt property since before the development was built. He tells them the complaint's trespass cause of action is well supported. 23 documented entries by Sentinel Patrol personnel on private property without owner permission, each entry photographed and logged. The Sentinel contract's paragraph 14 provides no defense. A private service contract between the HOA and a security contractor cannot authorize entry to a third party's property. He tells the board, without elaboration, that the patrol program's legal exposure in the trespass track is substantial. He tells them the bollard installation is Decker Pruitt's legal right. He installed physical access control structures on his own property, without any obligation to notify or seek consent from the HOA. The structures are on Pruitt land. The HOA has no legal basis to challenge them. He tells them the HOA has no viable legal position on any track. The room is quiet. Patrick continues. He tells them the patrol program needs to be terminated, not suspended, not paused for legal review, terminated permanently. He tells them the road situation needs to be resolved through a negotiated easement, a recorded right-of-way instrument that grants the development legal access to the road strip in exchange for whatever consideration Decker Pruitt and Lois Faber determine to require. He tells them the 1999 developer should have secured this instrument before routing the development's primary access road through private land, and that it did not, and that the HOA is now facing the consequence of that failure 25 years after the development was built. Iris Tamboli has been listening from the end of the table, with the specific stillness of a former land use planner hearing a description of a procedural failure she recognizes from professional experience. She asks Patrick one question. She asks whether the HOA's legal review of the 1999 development documents, the review that should have preceded the board's acceptance of the community infrastructure, the review that any competent legal intake of a development's founding documents would have included, whether that review had ever identified the road strip ownership issue before Tuesday of this week. Patrick tells her it had not. Iris asks whose responsibility that review was. The room is quiet, in the way rooms are quiet when a question has been asked that everyone present understands, and no one is prepared to answer. The quiet of a governance failure becoming fully visible to the people who will have to sit with it and eventually account for it, to the 290-post forum, and the 18 cars that were stacked at the Bollard line on Tuesday evening, and the 260 households who drove the secondary Ridge Trail that morning, and will drive it again tomorrow. Renata does not answer Iris's question. She looks at the table. She looks at the complaint. She looks at the certified plat on page 3, the one with Carson Webb's professional seal, and the 340.3-foot measurement, and the notation she has been reading in her mind on a loop since 11:40 Tuesday morning. No easement monument, no right-of-way marker, no physical evidence of recorded access authorization. Howard Sela asks Patrick what a negotiated easement will cost. Patrick tells him the cost will depend entirely on what Decker Pruitt and Lois Faber determine to require. It will not be free. It will not be inexpensive. And it will not include any resolution of the trespass complaint, which is a separate matter to be negotiated separately. Yolanda Marsh asks whether the HOA can claim the easement through adverse possession, 25 years of open and continuous use of the road. Patrick explains why adverse possession cannot be claimed by a 260-household HOA against a private landowner in a situation where the use of the road was established through a developer's false representation to the County Public Works Office, and why the trespass complaint filed simultaneously with the Bollard installation has the specific legal effect of interrupting any adverse possession timeline that might otherwise have been running. Lois Faber had anticipated the adverse possession argument. She told Decker in October, when she first confirmed the road strip, that the complaint filing and Bollard installation needed to happen simultaneously and on a recorded date because of precisely this. The entry in the logbook on October 30th, filing ready, is the documentation of the moment Decker understood why the timing mattered. It is 6:58 p.m. The general membership session opens at 7:30. Carl Pruitt asks Renata how they want to handle the membership session. She picks up Patrick's 2-page assessment from the table and looks at it for a moment. She has been the board president of this community for 4 years. She launched the patrol program that produced 23 trespass entries and an 8-exhibit civil complaint. She framed the developer's planning sketch in the lobby and called it a community boundary. She sent Decker a letter requesting his cooperation with her access corridor requirements. She sets the assessment down. She tells the board that she will present the situation to the membership directly: the road strip, the complaint, the patrol suspension, and the board's path forward through the easement negotiation. She tells them the community deserves a complete account of what the records show. She does not answer Iris's question about the review responsibility. She does not answer it in the boardroom, and she will not answer it in the membership session, and she will not answer it in the forum thread that Dennis Cho's post generated, which is now at 312 replies and still running. But Iris Tamboli writes the question down on the legal pad in front of her. She dates it, she underlines it, she puts the pen down. The boardroom door opens at 7:29 to let the general membership in, and the sound of 260 households worth of accumulated Tuesday and Wednesday frustration and forum posts and secondary Ridge Trail commutes comes through the door with them, and the emergency meeting of the Pinnacle Estates HOA begins. Renata Voss submits her resignation from the Pinnacle Estates HOA board presidency on Friday morning in a single paragraph, a typed note on plain paper rather than HOA letterhead, delivered to the board's administrative email and to the resident forum simultaneously, which is either an act of transparency or the exhaustion of a person who no longer has the energy to manage the information sequence. The note does not explain. It thanks the community for 4 years of the opportunity to serve. It expresses confidence in the board's ability to navigate the current situation. It does not mention the patrol program. It does not mention the road strip. It does not mention the framed developer map in the clubhouse lobby, which someone has already removed from the wall by the time the note arrives in the resident forum. Removed quietly and without announcement, leaving a rectangle of slightly less faded paint on the lobby wall that is, in its own way, a more complete account of the situation than the resignation note. The note arrives in the forum at 9:17 Friday morning. The forum generates 41 replies in the first hour. Iris Tamboli assumes the interim board presidency by noon. She does it without ceremony. A board vote by email, 4 votes in favor before 12 o'clock. The confirmation posted to the forum at 12:03. She has been on the board for 3 years and has been a land use planner for 22. And she approaches the interim presidency with the specific competence of someone who has been sitting in rooms where governance failures become visible, and who knows that the work that follows such moments is not dramatic. It is procedural. It is sequential. It requires identifying the correct next step and taking it without allowing the noise of the surrounding situation to substitute for the quiet of actual progress. The correct next step is Lois Faber. She calls Lois's office at 2:30 Friday afternoon. She identifies herself and her new role, and then she tells Lois 2 things without preamble. The first is that the board is not contesting the road strip deed, the chain of title analysis, or Carson Webb's certified survey. The records are what they are. The county recorder's instruments say what they say. The board has reviewed Patrick Swell's assessment and understands its legal position, and the board's position is that contesting the documented record in litigation is neither viable nor the appropriate use of the community's resources. The second is that the board's goal is a recorded easement for the road strip, full resolution of the trespass claims, and the permanent termination of the Sentinel Perimeter Services Patrol Program, included in the settlement terms, not as a separate negotiation. Lois notes the third item. The patrol termination is not her requirement. She has the trespass complaint and the documented 23 entries, and she will litigate that track on its own merits if the settlement does not address it. But the permanent termination of the patrol program, as a settlement term, is Iris Tamboli's addition. The decision of a former land use planner who has read the Sentinel contract, read paragraph 14, and understood that a community safety program built on a contractor's legally meaningless adjacent corridor access clause, and authorized through a board that did not seek legal review of a 19-page security contract, is not a community safety program in any meaningful sense. It is a liability dressed in a gray uniform and equipped with a decorative light bar, and the appropriate resolution for a liability is termination, not suspension. Lois tells Iris she will call her client and be back to her by end of day. She calls Decker at 3 p.m. She tells him about the call. She tells him about Iris's 2 items and the third item Iris added herself. She reads him the board's stated position. No contest on the deed, no contest on the survey, easement negotiation, trespass resolution, patrol termination. Decker is quiet for a moment, in the way he has been quiet at every significant point in this process. Not the silence of uncertainty, but the silence of a man checking what he hears against what he knows, and finding that the two are in alignment. He tells Lois he will reopen the road, not as a concession, not as a negotiating gesture. He tells her the same thing, in more direct language, that produces the same decision every time it is made by a rancher who understands the difference between the legal dispute he is pursuing and the daily life of the 260 households who are caught in the geography of it. The residents of Pinnacle Estates did not authorize the patrol program. They did not extend the road through his property in 1999. They did not send him the letter requesting his cooperation with access corridor requirements. They bought homes in a development whose primary access road was built on private land without an easement, and they drove it for 25 years without knowing, and they are commuting on a secondary ridge trail right now because of a governance failure that precedes their ownership and was never their responsibility. He reopens the road the following morning, the morning after Iris's call, removing the center bollard from its concrete setting with a post puller and his truck's tow hitch in a 20-minute operation. He leaves the 2 outer bollards in place as physical boundary markers, the permanent physical reference points that will be cited in the easement instrument as the bollard line terminus of the Pruitt property boundary. The road strip is open to vehicle passage again. The outer posts frame it. The forum notes the bollard removal at 7:48 Saturday morning, posted by a resident who drives through on her way to the county road, and photographs the open center passage and the 2 remaining posts and writes 3 words. It's open. Thank you. The settlement conference is scheduled for the following Wednesday and Thursday and runs both days. Lois attends with the full file, 43 pages, 8 exhibits, Carson's plat, Marcus's chain of title, Earl's statement, the 23 entry documentation chart. Patrick Swell attends for the HOA with his own file and the specific professional demeanor of an attorney representing a party who has read his assessment and accepted its conclusions, and is present not to argue the record, but to negotiate its resolution. The terms build across 2 days in the methodical back and forth of attorneys who agree on the facts and are working through the instrument details rather than the fundamental positions. The road strip easement is drafted by Marcus Cole and Lois jointly, a recorded right-of-way instrument granting the Pinnacle Estates community permanent access to the 340-foot road strip under specifically defined terms, referencing Carson Webb's certified survey as the boundary instrument and the Bollard line markers as the physical terminus reference. The consideration is a negotiated payment to Decker, not a nominal figure, not a punitive one, a number that reflects what 25 years of uncompensated road use across fee-simple ranch property is worth when the property owner has a litigation-ready case, and an attorney who has been practicing property rights law in this district for 20 years and has no particular reason to settle cheaply. The trespass resolution is a formal written acknowledgement, signed by the HOA board in its official capacity, that the 23 Sentinel Perimeter Services patrol entries onto Pruitt Ranch land between August 26th and October 30th constituted unauthorized trespass, that the entries were made without the property owner's permission and without any legal authorization derived from the Sentinel service contract or the HOA's community authority, and that the adjacent corridor access language in paragraph 14 of the Sentinel contract conferred no right of entry to Pruitt land at any time. The patrol termination is a recorded board resolution, permanent, not suspended, not subject to reinstatement by a future board without a new vote and new legal review. The Sentinel Perimeter Services contract is terminated for cause. The final payment is made, the equipment is returned, and the contract is closed with the written acknowledgement attached. The recorded instrument acknowledging the Pruitt deed's unencumbered fee-simple status is the last document in the settlement package, a formal recorded statement in the county recorder's system that the road strip is Decker Pruitt's property, that it has been Pruitt property since 1973, and that the easement now recorded is the first and only access right ever formally established over the strip. Unless Cho attends the second day of the settlement conference as a community representative at Iris's invitation, a practical decision by a board president who understands that having a civil engineer in the room during the easement boundary definition discussion is more useful than not having one. He asks one technical question during the second afternoon, a clarification about the easement boundary description at the southern edge of the strip, where the road surface narrows near a culvert, a detail that matters for the instrument's precision, and that neither attorney had flagged in the draft language. The question produces a 15-minute discussion between Lois, Patrick, and Carson Webb on the phone, and the result is a boundary description that is more precisely worded than the draft, and will be harder to misread or dispute in any future matter involving the strip. Iris thanks Dennis on the way out of the conference room. He tells her he is glad the forum post was useful. She tells him it changed the timeline of everything that followed by approximately 2 days, because the technical clarity of his Wednesday morning post made it impossible for the board to characterize the road strip situation as uncertain or disputed in the membership session Wednesday evening, which made the membership session more focused and productive than it would otherwise have been, which accelerated the conditions for Renata's resignation and Iris's assumption of the interim presidency, and the Friday call to Lois Faber. He thinks about this for a moment. The records were always there, he says. Yes, Iris says. They were. Decker signs the settlement agreement on a Thursday afternoon in the last week of the December in Lois Faber's office, an unremarkable room with a cluttered desk and a wall of bookshelves and the particular functional atmosphere of a workspace belonging to someone who uses their office to work rather than to impress clients. He reads the full settlement package before signing, the way he reads everything, completely, in sequence, without skimming, from the first page of the road strip easement to the last signature line of the trespass acknowledgement. He signs each instrument where Lois marks the line. He thanks her, picks up his truck keys, and drives home. He passes the road strip on the way, the 2 outer bollards still standing at the eastern edge of the county road terminus, the center passage open, the approach road visible beyond the bollard line running its 340.3 feet to the development entrance. The bollard line markers are referenced in the easement instrument by physical description and GPS coordinate. They are now part of a recorded county document. They will stand at the road strip boundary for as long as the easement stands, which is in perpetuity, which is the duration of the instrument that should have been recorded in 1999, before the developer built a road through land that did not belong to the development, and filed a permit application describing it as something it had never been. He drives past without stopping. He feeds the cattle on the evening rotation. He goes inside and takes the logbook from the tack room shelf and carries it to the porch. He sits in the December evening with the logbook open on his knee and writes the settlement terms in 4 sentences. Easement recorded, trespass acknowledged, patrol terminated, deed confirmed. The 4 sentences take up 4 lines. He writes them in the same hand as the 23 patrol entry records that precede them, the same hand as the October confirmation notation and the November bollard order entry and the December 4th installation record. Then he writes, in the margin beside the 4 settlement sentences, in smaller script that fills the space between the entry lines, patrol terminated, road deed confirmed, easement recorded, 23 entries documented and acknowledged, matter closed. He closes the logbook. He is sitting on the porch with it closed on the armrest when Earl calls. Done? Earl says. Done, Decker says. Earl is quiet for a moment. The comfortable pause of a neighbor who has been part of this from the August morning. He told Decker what a private security contractor's uniform actually authorizes. The neighbor whose 4-page notarized statement is now a permanent exhibit in the county court's case file, and whose professional knowledge of the law was the first instrument Decker used to understand what was happening at his gate. You know what I keep thinking about? Earl says. Those uniforms. They drove through your gate 23 times in a vehicle with a light bar, thinking the gear made it legal. Decker looks east from the porch toward the ranch road running to the bollard posts, the 2 outer markers visible as dark shapes in the December evening. The development's roof line showing above the tree line on the plateau, the road strip running between them, carrying its new recorded easement, the legal instrument that transforms 25 years of unauthorized use into a permanent recorded right, the instrument that the 1999 developer chose not to create, and that a rancher with a logbook and a property rights attorney and the patience to document everything and react to nothing has now caused to exist. The gear didn't make it anything, Decker says. The deed did. Earl laughs, a short, quiet laugh, the sound of a former law enforcement officer appreciating the precision of the sentence. They say goodnight. The call ends. The porch is quiet. Decker looks at the bollard line in the last of the December light. The logbook sits closed on the armrest beside him. 53 pages of entries from August 26th to December. The complete documented record of what happens when an HOA patrol program crosses a private boundary without checking the deed, drives through the wrong gate 23 times, and meets a rancher who understands that authority does not come from a light bar or a letterhead or a framed map in a lobby or a paragraph in an unreviewed contract. It comes from the deed. It always comes from the deed.